video, we're running through our top 36 running back rankings for the 2025 fantasy football season, post-NFL draft, so we're back into the groove of things. Earlier this week, we did the wide receiver version of that. We'll be linked down below. Next week, we'll be doing the same thing for quarterbacks and tight ends, so make sure you subscribe. Give a shit about winning your fantasy football league, right? Let's take it from the very top. We're tiered up, we're tiered down, and this should come as no surprise when there one man and one man only. That back pain was real, but also symbolic of the way that Saquon Barkley carried the Philadelphia Eagles last year. I mean, for me, he's in the tier by himself. He's the 101, maybe one take Jamar Chase. I don't care. I'll take Saquon Barkley if I got the one. They gave him a raise this offseason. There's just no reason to think that he won't duplicate what he did last year this year. All right, Kenneth Gainwell's gone. Potential receiving bump, whatever. None of it matters. Saquon Barkley, 101 no matter what. Let's just move to tier number 2. And tier number 2 are guys that I feel phenomenal about having as my RB1. They're just not Saquon Barkley, and there's two dudes here, and we are talking about Bijan Robinson. We had a breakout here. 15 touchdowns, nearly 1,900 yards. He's about to enter his prime. If Michael Penix is good, Bijan Robinson is going to be great. He already was that last year, but he's only going to get better. And Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, you have an elite offense, you have an elite skill player, extremely high floor. I think people look at Gibbs as like a high ceiling player because of his speed and his explosiveness, but I would say the appeal for me for Gibbs is actually his floor, not his ceiling. Monty's still going to be involved. He's going to be involved on the goal line, but that really hasn't mattered. They both score a ton of touchdowns, and Gibbs is capable of breaking off a single fantasy point total on any given play, all right? So great offensive line, great offense. I know Ben Johnson's going to be gone, but I still think the sum of the players is what makes up an actual offense. Gibbs is elite, so yeah, skill, offense, line, everything, he's in tier 2. Tier number 3 is another tier made up of 2 guys. It's dudes that I still feel great about having as my running back 1, but less so than tier 2, barely, right? It's Derrick Henry and it's Ashton Jeanty. Derrick Henry, I mean, the age concerns were just overblown and absolutely outed throughout all of last year, going into multiple new scene. If there's anything we've learned from last year, it is that I'm not overly concerned about the age of running backs as long as they're in a really good situation. You know, it's kind of been the debate this offseason of like the Giants move on from Saquon Barkley. And I think what's become very, very apparent is like a very good running back is not going to make a bad team good or even much better. But a very good running back will make a very good team excellent. All right, and we saw that with a lot of the veteran running backs last year moving into really, really good situations, whether it was Saquon, whether it was Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, and those guys didn't turn the teams around, but they did improve and were kind of a revelation for the running game with respective offenses. Anyways, Derrick Henry, 16 touchdowns last year, same setup, same ceiling, probably the odds-on favorite to lead the league in rushing touchdowns this year. Then you have Ashton Jefferson, top 10 pick, no limit on the amount of touches that he can get or the fantasy upside that he can have year 1. You're the 6th overall pick, you are going to average 20+ touches per game. That is just hard to come by in fantasy these days, right? So that is tier 3. And again, basically what I said in the wide receiver video, as I'm doing rankings this summer, my rankings are going to are all going to be set up by tiers, and I am not ranking Jeanty below Henry just because I talked about it in this video. Obviously, the way numbers work, you have to have one above the other, but they're in the same tier for me based on the tier label, what I'm saying about these tiers, all right? So like tier number 4 is guys that I think you can, without a doubt, succeed if they're the RB1 on your team, all right? And this is a bigger tier. So I have Jonathan Taylor, Von Achane, Chase Brown, Josh Jacobs, Bucky Irving, C-Mac, Alvin Kamara, and Kyrie Williams. To me, they're in the same tier, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say that I, without a doubt, prefer Josh Jacobs to Alvin Kamara. These are all guys where if you showed me your team, they are your RB1, I feel like you can, without a doubt, succeed. And I'm not looking to draft one of these guys completely over the other guys. You guys can make your own tiers, but none of these guys are necessarily ranked over the other ones for me. They're all in the same, sphere of when I'm building a team, when I'm building a strategy for my draft. This is the way I'm looking at this group of guys here. So we'll start off with JT. Look at the last 5 weeks of last year. Guy was averaging 29 touches per game, and the offense clearly wants to run through him. Once JT was healthy down the stretch last year, he was averaging over 29 touches per game, 150 total yards, and 1.4 touchdowns per game over their last 5 games. Obviously, dealt with a lot of health issues last couple of years, but if you remember back in college in the first couple of years in the NFL, I mean, he was a dude who never got hurt. He was a literal fucking Iron Man, so if he can get a healthy season out of JT, he's going to go bonkers. Don Achane, I mean, dual threat. We saw him as a rookie, got it done through the ground game. We saw him as a sophomore, got it done through the air. Bolster is gone. The offensive line slightly improved, but still probably bad. Achane is just a monster regardless of how you look at it. Next up, we got Chase Brown. Absolute breakout last year. Cincinnati added, like, depth, but almost nothing serious to that backfield. So, yeah, they got Zach Moss. They got Samaje Perine. They also took Taj Brooks out of Texas Tech in the 6th round, but I actually think it's a pretty interesting prospect, but, like, 6th round pick, I'm not overly concerned about it. But this is clearly Chase Brown's backfield, and the way that this offense was set up last year and the porous defense, it looks like they're just running back the exact same thing, which is phenomenal news for Chase Brown. So he is in this tier for sure. If you owned him last year, you know. One thing that I think you should really try to remember as you're going into this year and drafting is in the next 5 or 6 months, it's before we draft, or I guess like 3 months now, we get very caught up in trying to break down numbers and predict like the percentage shares of stuff. Try to remember how you felt about these dudes last year when they were on your team. And if the situation, like if you owned Chase Brown last year, week in and week out, you were feeling like you had a high-end RB1. You weren't overthinking like, oh, this guy might lose touches here. Oh, this guy might do this and that and the other thing. Like, it just happened. Like, those things happened, and I don't think unless the situation changes drastically, unless Cincy went out and drafted Caleb Johnson in round 3, unless X, Y, or Z happened, there's not a lot of reason or logic to think that things are going to change drastically in that backfield, and you won't feel the same way about this dude this year than you did last year. So don't overthink it. If anything, overfeel it, all right? That's the fucking motto of the summer. Don't overthink it, overfeel it. Remember how you felt about this player last year while the fantasy season was actually going on, and unless there's been drastic changes, likely going to run back something very, very similar. So Chase Brown is like the poster child for what I just said right there. High-end RB1. I'd feel good about having him as my RB1 on my team. Same thing with Josh Jacobs, like great back in a good offense. Just keep this simple. Rushing touchdown upside is tremendous here. Bucky Irving, absolute stud as a rookie. With Bucky, I mean, you just look at how the season went last year. He just continued to get more and 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 more involved as the season went on, and Rachaad White took a back seat, and I think we're just going to see that be the case coming right into 2025. They have all 5 starting offensive linemen returning. They drafted Mecca Puka. I mean, this offense is not going to skip a beat. It's going to be high-powered, and they get to play against Carolina and Atlanta and New Orleans twice a year each, so the schedule is going to be beautiful. C-Mac, I mean, this is one where I don't have a hot take here. It's just going to be all eyes on that Achilles all summer. If he can go completely unscathed and everything is perfect throughout the summer, he'll probably move up a little bit. If not, he might move down. I don't know. If the injuries start, I'm going to be off of C-Mac completely, though. Alvin Kamara, we'll have to see what happens with New Orleans. They have Derek Carr retiring now. I don't know if Kamara's here for the long term, and by the long term, I mean the rest of this year for New Orleans Saints. It might make sense to just completely move to the youth version of this squad right now, and then try to move Kamara now, or try to figure out a way where he's not on the team this offseason. But if he is, it's just going to be more of the fucking same story. Still PPR monster in a bad offense that's just going to have to give him 1,000 touches again. So extremely high floor player if he is on the team this year. Next up, we got Kyren Williams. Now, he was kind of on the back end of this tier for me. I was going back and forth with him. His efficiency obviously dipped last year, and I think a lot of people are going to point to that. I will say that their offensive line dealt with so many injuries last year. Their overall offensive too. Puka was out for a while. Cup missed a lot of time, so there wasn't a lot of focus outside of Kyren Williams, especially with a bad offensive line, so it wasn't very easy to fucking run for him. I would say, like, Sean McVay just trusts the shit out of him. And I do think Devontae Adams coming in helps with the spacing of this offense. Blake Corum was a complete non-threat to him last year. They did draft Jarquez Hunter in the 4th round, who I actually really like, and I think he fits this offense pretty well. But again, I just think when Sean McVay trusts the guy, he just really, really, really trusts the guy. And we've seen that with Kyren Williams. He came out and talked last year, like, we're going to get Blake Corum more involved, and then the next week it'd be like Kyren 25 touches, Blake Corum 4 snaps, you know. So until we really see anything otherwise, I just don't understand why we wouldn't think Kyron Williams is just going to do what he's done the last 2 years.